In this lesson, we'll be looking at how to do define, state, process, and cycle. To do this, we'll use the example of a piston. So we're going to set up our piston over here on the right side of the screen. We're going to look at two of the properties of the piston, the pressure and the volume. There's our piston head. So we're going to start out with our piston head at its largest point, highest point. We're going to have air inside the piston. That'll be our system, so we'll denote that with our boundary. So while the air is in this condition, it has properties. It has a property of pressure and a property of volume in that condition. The properties that make up that condition define the state of the system. So the state is the condition of a system defined by its properties. So taking when the air is in this certain situation, it has a pressure, it has a volume, it also has a temperature, which we're not looking at in this case. All of those are properties of that state. So we're going to call this state 1. It's at its largest, the piston is at its largest volume, so we have volume 1 there all the way on the right. And when you're at this large, it's going to have a low pressure. So it'll be pressure 1 of state 1. If we then compress the piston head, when you squeeze it together, the volume is going to decrease of the system, and the pressure will then increase because we're squeezing, we're compressing it. So we have to put more pressure on the system to close the cylinder head down. Since it is a closed system, we're not allowing mass to come in and out. So the pressure will increase, the volume will decrease, and that's going to define our state 2. Now, a process is how we go about getting from state 1 to state 2. So as we're changing the properties, changing the conditions to get to a new state, that is a process. So any means that we get to there. It's the change of a system from one state to another. So in this case, we call this process process 1, 2, because it's the process leading from 1 to 2. We draw the line as dashed because we don't know the exact way in which this process will occur. We haven't defined is there a linear relationship between pressure and volume? Is it parabolic? We haven't really stated that. So since we don't know, we draw it as a dashed line. If we were to release the cylinder head, stop squeezing on it so it comes all the way back out to a state 1, the volume now increases again, the pressure drops to its original condition, and we get back to state 1. So this is going to be the process going from state 2 to state 1, so this will be process 2-1. When we go from a state to another state and then go through any sequence of states and come back to our initial state, that's what we call a cycle. All right, the sequence of processes that return to its initial state. So just to recap, state is the condition of the system. It's where it is instantaneously at one point. That's what the properties exhibited at that one instantaneous time, one instantaneous moment. A process is how we get from one state to another. And a cycle is a sequence of processes that comes back to that initial state that we started at.